Hey, it's Lisa Campion here, and I'm going to talk about your spiritual evolution and 3D, 4D, and 5D states of consciousness. What does that mean, and how do we know where we're at? Well, it's really important, especially if you're interested in quantum healing or you're feeling like you're a part of this quantum shift in consciousness. It's good to know this. This is the thing you need to know right now. So let's start kind of at the beginning. 3D consciousness, the foundation of where we're at right now. So 3D, when you hear people talk about that, what does that mean? 3D consciousness is the physical world we live in. The day-to-day life. I think of it sort of as the Muggle world. If you're a Harry Potter fan, you know who the Muggles are. You get up, you go to work, you pay your bills, you eat 3 meals a day. It's like the practical side of life, buying groceries, managing daily tasks. It's the world of solid matter. It's the world of Newtonian physics. And it's really, it has to do with our ego identity. If you know anything about the chakras, it's the lower three chakras, the first, the navel chakra and the solar plexus chakra. And those things really represent our ego self, our personality, our personal self. And it's very like our personality just wants sort of a nice, comfy life, wants to like kick back and watch Netflix and have things be easy and not, and just, and there's nothing wrong with this, by the way. It's totally part of who we are as humans. There's a lot, I think, of focus on power, sex, money, sort of the needs, the wants, kind of gratification of our desires. Again, nothing wrong with this. It's perfectly legit way to be in the world. And I think we're just like probably living an ordinary life. We're a bit of a muggle, but it's okay. It's all fine. And then something happens to shift our state of consciousness. Something happens that kind of wakes us up into the next realm of dimension, the 4D, the fourth dimensional realm of consciousness. This is, the spiritual awakening, the psychic awakening. I hear people all the time who say, well, I started my spiritual journey. I'm on a journey. And spiritual awakening often happens through kind of an initiation experience. Maybe you learned yoga, right? You did yoga teacher training. You went to meditation circle. You started spending a lot of time doing meditation, or you learned Reiki. I always say yoga, meditation, and Reiki are the three gateways into the world of spiritual awakening. Maybe there was a death in your family. You had a near-death experience. You had a health diagnosis. You almost died, or somebody close to you died. Sometimes these brushes with death create a pretty powerful shift in our consciousness. Maybe you did some plant medicine or had, some ecstatic states. Possibly, and this is sadly a very common way to get here, you had sort of a dark night of the soul. Some powerfully, it seems like a horrible experience at the time, tragedy that's an initiation process. You went through a horrible divorce. You had a health diagnosis. It totally wrecked your life. It's sort of the total life crash and burn where things changed so much that we weren't who we were before that happened, right? And these things can lead us to wake up to the experience that there's more to life than just the average, ordinary Dunkin' Donuts kind of life. You go to Dunk's and you buy an iced coffee and you have a donut, and that's a good day, And again, I'm not knocking this. We need this. You need your 3D consciousness if you want to drive a car, show up to work, with your pants on properly, and not get fired. Like, we need to have access to our personality, our ego self. Once we have the spiritual awakening, it almost always comes with a psychic awakening. So it's really a shift in our own state of consciousness. It's not that the world has changed. It's our ability to perceive the world that's changed. We shift our frequency, we open our mind, and suddenly we're sort of able to access this fourth dimension, to experience it as a real thing. And maybe that means we're suddenly really intuitive. We look at the clock and we notice it says 11:11. We're recognizing signs and omens everywhere we go. We start working with crystals, essential oils. We have oracle cards and tarot cards, and we deepen our spiritual practice. We go through like yoga, again, yoga, Reiki, meditation. We understand we have a higher self. So our identity starts shifting away from the egoic self into this, oh, there's this whole other part of me. I have a soul, and that's a big deal. Maybe we know we have spirit guides. We start talking to our angels. We have paranormal experiences, and there's such a beautiful, joyful, magical. We kind of go into the flow, this magical flow of signs and opens, and feeling we're on our journey, and getting all this incredible feedback from, yes, you're on your journey, from our guides, angels. And it's so beautiful. We have a massive spike in our intuition and our psychic ability. And often that's where I work with people, because I work a lot with people who are undergoing this kind of psychic opening and really need help, really need mentoring, assistance, guidance for all those things. And we begin sort of disidentifying from our personal self, from the ego self. We realize we have that, but it's not all of who we are. We have a body but we're more than our body. We have emotions, but we're more than our emotions. We have our thoughts, but we're more than that. Well, what is that thing that's more than? That's our higher self, our consciousness, literally our conscious self. And we're beginning to disidentify that. We understand there's this other thing that's not just the Dunkin' Donuts ego self. I'm not slamming dunks, you guys. I'm from New England. I love dunks. And yet it's so cool. And yet this fourth dimensional journey, the spiritual awakening, always has a little bit of a bummer side to it, this purge period, where we release the lower frequencies, kind of purging off these 3D lower energetics that we've accumulated from living in the ego self. So part of your spiritual awakening and your journey into the 4D is going to be like a physical purge. And that might mean that underlying illnesses emerge. Maybe you realize, oh my God, I have Lyme disease, or I have Epstein-Barr, I have fibromyalgia. Maybe we experience an increase in chemical sensitivity, the inability to process really, to eat really heavily processed or dense foods. Some kind of health crisis can come with this that gives us a little dope smack and makes us really understand we have to take care of our physical body, and it matters what we put into our body. So hopefully we get serious about our health. We start drinking more water. Maybe we quit drinking alcohol and stop doing recreational drugs. We clean up our diet. We work with a functional medicine doctor to help us get our health in alignment, because and the thing about this purge period is those issues don't stop until you address them. So those lingering health things are going to carry on until you actually deal with them. Then there's the emotional purge. Always fun. We have heightened sensitivity to our emotions. If we've been blocking our emotions or suppressing them, suddenly they fled. They're like, we become a bit of an emotional hot mess. Maybe you discovered you're an empath. Maybe you're like, oh my God, I really had no idea how depressed and anxious I was all the time. Maybe we feel called to start dealing with any emotional traumas or any traumas that we've had. Like our unprocessed, unresolved emotional stuff comes up to be cleared out. And it's not always a picnic. These purge things can be pretty tough and pretty overwhelming. Meanwhile, you're still having the magical signs and omens. You're still, in the beautiful flow of this, psychic and spiritual awakening, but we're also at the same time dealing with the purge. And hopefully with the emotional purge, you're going to get some therapy. You're going to get some serious healing for your emotional wounds. You're going to work with a healer. You're going to journal every day. You're going to learn EFT, IET, something to help you clean out the unprocessed stuff. You know where we're going with this, right? Because the next thing is the mental purge, where we have to spend some time looking at our negative thinking patterns. We realize how negative our thinking really is. We realize how little control we have over our mind. And I'll never forget this time when I was leading a retreat and I sort of casually said, your thoughts aren't true, right? As if everybody knows that. And this poor woman on the retreat just was stricken. She's like, what do you mean my thoughts aren't true? Well, your thoughts aren't truth with a capital T. They're true for you, but you might have a thought that says you're not worthy. Well, and you might really believe that is truth with a capital T, but is it true? Really? It's not, So we go into this mental purge. We really examine our negative thinking patterns, most of which got downloaded into our being when we're really little. So before we're 5 years old, they're lodged in our subconscious, and they're kind of like the computer software that's running, in the background. And we need to clean it up. So we find our way to meditation. Meditation is one of the best ways to clear your thoughts. Maybe we learn some hypnosis, EFT, tapping. We do some NLP, neuro linguistic programming. We work with affirmations. We understand that because the way we think shapes our reality, that thoughts become things, that we have, if we don't like our life, it's probably because we're thinking some stuff that is shaping a life we don't really want to learn. Mental purge. Then there's the spiritual purge. Eventually these purges are going to end. This is the last one. Spiritual purge. We start doing past life healing. You start maybe remembering your past lives. Maybe you do some soul retrievals because it didn't go well in all of your past lives. We might really attend to our ancestral healing and understand the lineage wound that we're very deeply impacted by generational trauma. And the spiritual purge is working on the soul level, who we really are, to kind of heal that up. And as we go through this purge, no picnic, and it's very cyclical, so it doesn't go in the order that I just gave you. It could go in any order. And it might be like, we're going to do a little physical purge, a little emotional purge, a little spiritual purge, and a little mental purge. It's all the layers coming off in whatever way they do. As we release all those kind of crunchy old energies, we find ourselves naturally upshifting into this fifth dimensional consciousness, quantum consciousness. And this is where we get quantum mastery. What a relief, because the first thing that we notice about being in this 5D level of consciousness is that it's surprisingly easy and joyful. After all that intense purging and processing we did in the 4D part of our spiritual journey, 5D consciousness feels like a picnic. It's such a huge relief. Maybe you notice that you've shifted your identity a little bit away from or continuing to shift from your personality, your ego self. You know you have it, but it's not you. It's part of you, but it's not the fullness of you. We go into a state where we have much more joy. So high joy experiences, high joy vibrations becomes our natural state. Instead of having to work for happiness, happiness becomes our baseline. We wake up feeling good for no particular reason. Little things delight us. We find ourselves laughing and feeling more content most of the time. Hallelujah. We enter into this sort of fluid navigation where we move easily through 3D and 4D consciousness when we need to, kind of like a Navy SEAL. You need to be in your ego self, like when you want to go in the convenience store and buy a gallon of milk, drive your car, show up at work, like I said, with your pants on. And you want to go into 4D fluidly when you want to do some intuitive work. You want to talk to your higher self. You need some guidance from the angels. We shift into that state, and then we go up into this. So we can shift through these at will, right? There's an incredibly interesting thing that happens here. We sort of integrate some psychic integration. So we have easy access to the fourth dimension, but it kind of loses its novelty a little bit. It loses a little bit of its magic. Like 11:11 just becomes a little bit past 11 on the clock, and it doesn't always mean like your angels are sending you this life and death message that is like the be all and end all for you. So it's really important that we don't get stuck in the fourth dimension and thinking it's the end game. We need it when we need it. And then when we're up in the fifth dimension, we don't need it as much. We're sort of in alignment with divine will. We're in alignment with our higher self. And we don't always need that sort of constant confirmation that we were getting when we were in 4D. The 50 consciousness has a huge lack of reactivity. So the things that used to trigger you just don't. Someone cuts you off in traffic and you're like, oh, I hope you're okay. Drama at work feels like you're watching a movie. It's interesting, but it's like whatever. So we lose sort of that addiction to drama. We respond instead of react, and it happens without thinking about it. Maybe we shift our perspective. So we're looking at things from a bigger picture. Problems feel very temporarily. We say things like, this too shall pass. And what used to feel like a major, big, huge deal is just kind of like, oh, well, yeah, that's really not a big one. We have emotional mastery without all the super duper heavy lifting we did in the 4D purge. In 4D world, 3D world, we have to work at our emotions, and it's so hard. It's truly hard work. But in the fifth dimensional consciousness, quantum consciousness, we're really just balancing our emotions. It just happens. You feel your emotions, instead of getting stuck and causing a problem, they just sort of flow through you cleanly without getting stuck. So anyway, there's sovereignty that happens. This is where if you're already doing healing work, it's going to shift into that quantum dimension. Your sovereignty is really king here. So reclaiming your power in all areas of your lives. And we understand that we are in a co-creative collaboration with the universe. We're co-creating with that. And that is where things, the real magic happens. And we have access to, and I'm going to talk about what the quantum dimension is in a minute in a different video, but we begin to be able to manifest things, because in the quantum field, all things are possible. So we know that we just need to align ourselves into this higher vibration and be very clear on what our ask is, and that we're putting our 50% in, we're working it, we're doing the steps we need to take, inspired action to get there. But the universe is going to meet us halfway, and we're in this co-creative universe, relationship with the universe. God, it's so good. So anyway, tell me what you think. Are you experiencing any of this shift into the quantum level? Do you feel like you're stuck in one of the levels? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you in the comments.